My days were like the pages of a book that kept turning, but nothing ever happened in them. My world was confined to the walls of this house, which breathed dust and memories that weren't my own. I, Alice, was not just an obedient girl, but rather a prisoner confined within my own mind. My body seemed to obey all of my aunt's commands, but my soul, like a bird beating against glass, longed to break free. I read. Reading was my only solace and my secret weapon. In books, I found worlds where girls were not doomed to a boring existence but fought for their destiny. I traveled with heroes across seas, uncovered secrets with detectives, fell in love with brave captains, and suffered alongside lovers. These stories were my only window to the world. I didn't just read. I lived these stories because in real life, I lacked my own. My sharp mind, which I inherited from my father, allowed me to see what others did not. I noticed how shadows played in the corners of the room, how my aunt's expression changed when she recalled the past, and how every creak of the old house held its own story. I analyzed, pondered, and asked myself questions to which I had no answers. But all of this happened inside, in a secret room of my soul that was closed to everyone but me. I felt that my destiny was not simply to become some man's wife or to live out my life in this house, as generations of women before me had done. I felt that I was meant for something more. Within me, like a deep river, passions and desires raged with no outlet. It was a feeling of loneliness that constantly accompanied me, but at the same time, it was also my strength, because it allowed me to be independent, regardless of the circumstances. And when I found that strange entry in the folio, and then received the letter with the inheritance, I realized that my dreams had been secretly preparing me for this moment. I understood that this path was not just a journey, but an opportunity to find myself, my voice, and my purpose. I felt that my life, which had been so gray and monotonous for so long, would finally gain color, and that I was ready for this change, even if it brought me unknown trials and dangers. Aunt Elspeth. Wisdom and strictness. Aunt Elspeth, who took me under her care after my parents' death, was not a gentle or sentimental woman. Her face, etched by years of hard work and strict rules, rarely knew a smile, and her words were as solid and direct as the oak furniture in her home. I never heard compliments from her, but I also don't recall any punishments that were beyond reason. She believed that a woman should be strong and independent, but at the same time know her place. Elspeth managed our house with unyielding discipline. Every day had its schedule, every item its place. She often told me that duty and decency are the foundation upon which a dignified life stands. She did not allow me to dream about the fantastic worlds from the books she herself permitted me to read. Dreams are nice, Alice, but only as long as they don't prevent you from performing your duties, she would say. But despite her strictness, it was she who saw my thirst for knowledge. She taught me to read and write, to understand numbers and complex legal documents. She gave me the key to the world, without suspecting that I would use it not to maintain order in the house, but to unlock the door to adventure. Her prohibitions, her constant talk of rules and duties did not break me. On the contrary, they strengthened my spirit. Without even realizing it, she forged in me not only discipline but also the desire to fight for my freedom. I understood that the only way to break out of this cycle was to become stronger, smarter, and braver than she expected. The mysterious entry and the condition of the inheritance. One evening, as an autumn drizzle enveloped our house and the wind, like a lost soul, howled in the chimney, I as always sat by the fire, rereading an old folio. It was a book on mythology, given to my aunt by her great-grandfather. I was turning the yellowed, worn pages when my gaze caught on a strange entry, made in the margins in an unusual but elegant hand. The words were barely visible, written in faded ink. The key to the light hidden in the darkness of Blackwood Manor can only be found by one who is ready to leave their sanctuary and go where the waves break. These words struck me. I couldn't understand their meaning, but I felt they were connected to a secret hidden in our family's abandoned manor. It had long been neglected, its walls slowly crumbling, and with them, it seemed, our family's secrets were also crumbling. That same night, as I was still pondering this entry, a lawyer arrived at our door. A pale, thin man in a gray suit. He brought a letter with a seal and a document. The letter stated that I, Alice, was the sole heiress, receiving a small but sufficient inheritance for an independent life from a relative I had never heard of, Lady Eleanor Blackwood. But there was a condition. I had to accompany an old chest with her personal belongings onto a ship called the Sea Maiden, which was embarking on a long journey. The letter stated that it was the last wish of the deceased, which must be fulfilled so that her soul may finally find peace. I felt that this was not just a whim, but part of a large, tangled mystery in which I was now involved. My aunt, learning of this condition, was outraged. "This is madness, Alice. This is not decent," she cried. But I had already made a decision. This letter and the mysterious entry were my only chance to break out of the house that had become my prison. This was my calling, my key to the light, which promised me not only an inheritance but also a new life. My heart beat so hard that I could feel its drumming in my ears. I held the letter, this mysterious document, and felt it vibrating with unsolved secrets. My aunt, furious and bewildered by my sudden determination, tried to stop me. She spoke of recklessness, of danger, of how a decent girl cannot simply leave her home like that. But I no longer heard her. Her words, which had once seemed an insurmountable wall, now crumbled like sand. I felt like a butterfly that had finally broken free from its cocoon. I looked at my aunt, at her strict face, at her cold eyes, and understood that our life, her life, was the life of a prisoner. I did not want to be like that. My hand, holding the letter, trembled not from fear, but from excitement. In this letter, I saw not only an inheritance but also the promise of freedom. This was my chance to break out of a world where I was just a pale shadow and become a real, living person. I knew the path I had chosen would be difficult, but I was ready for it. I was ready for trials, for the unknown, for danger. I was ready to live. Sailing into the unknown, some unknown force was pulling me towards this journey. The smell of the sea, the noise of the port city, the hum of the ship's engines. It was all new and strange to me, but at the same time, I felt that this was my place, my calling. I stood on the deck of the Sea Maiden, and looked at the endless sea that stretched out before me, and I felt my heart fill with excitement. I knew that this path would not be easy. Unknown trials and dangers awaited me, but I was ready for them. I was ready to fight because I knew that my life, my freedom, was at stake. And it was at that moment that I felt that I, Alice, a delicate girl who had always lived in the shadows, was ready to become a strong, independent woman who would decide her own fate.